Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Improving Teacher-Student Relationships. I am Dr. Petrie, one of your co-instructors, and today we're going to talk a little bit about this wonderful book, How to Talk So Kids Can Learn. You do have an excerpt. All of Chapter 4 is in your reading section for this week, but I thought I would try my best to do a quick overview of the entire book. So my apologies to Adele and Elaine because I'm going to try and summarize their entire book in about 10 minutes. So this book shows teachers how to establish positive and respectful environment with students. The authors explore differences in the words that demoralize and the words that uplift. And reading these instructions and the clear examples in this book will inform teachers about the small changes they can make in the way they talk to their students. Each chapter presents a different skill. It starts with a general overview, and then it's followed with a cartoon series that illustrates the skill in use. And then finally it finishes with a Q&A section, which are questions from teachers and parents that are actually quite entertaining and enlightening. So the first step here is to acknowledge the child's feelings. How do we acknowledge the feelings that our children have in class? And this can be different depending on if you are teaching, elementary school versus middle or high school. However, the first step is to identify the feelings. I know you're upset. I know you're mad. I know you must be depressed over this. You must be sad over this. And the next step is to acknowledge those feelings. And you say, you know what? I've been depressed. I've been angry. And these are some of the ways I've gotten through it. So finally, the third step is to what they call in the book, give the gift of make-believe. We're going to turn the page on this bad experience, and we're going to make believe it never happened. So let's make believe that Susie's not mad at you, that you didn't cheat on the test. We will make believe that these things didn't happen, and we will move on. So lastly, you need to accept the feelings as you stop what they term unacceptable behavior. So you can say, I know you're upset about breaking up with your girlfriend. However, I can't have people throwing things in my class. So using these 4 steps are very encouraging to children, especially when you're dealing with adolescents, middle and high school. You want to recognize that they're upset about things, recognize that they have the right to be upset about something, but that they don't have the right to disrupt your class or defy your authority. So, and just the simple fact of accepting those feelings, identifying them, acknowledging them, and accepting them will help you turn a negative situation into a positive one. So next, Elaine and Adele talk about encouraging cooperation. And this is where you describe the problem that you're having. And next, you give information about the problem. You offer students a choice. And here's where this is a great teacher move that I've used a lot of times, where you say it with a word or gesture. So instead of being long-winded and saying, boy, Karen, you're writing all over the page, all I do is I point to the paper and I say, margins. And she knows she's got to control what she's doing with her writing. Describing what you feel is, teachers need to acknowledge their feelings also, and when you describe what you feel, you can say, I really wish we didn't have to do the state testing, however, we do, so let's get on with it. Last thing that will encourage, cooperating with your students is being playful, using funny voices. I like to use my outrageous French accent when I teach about the French Revolution. And the kids like it, the kids get a kick out of it, and I even hear them imitating me later. So, all of these tips help you build some cooperation in your classroom. Others might call this buying social capital in your classroom. And these can definitely help you get onto a good relationship with your students. The next piece of advice, or the next chapter they talk about, are alternatives to punishment. Punishment is a good way to destroy a relationship, especially with a kid who already feels marginalized. So the first thing the authors advise you to do is point out a way to be helpful. You've broken a rule, you've done something that's really upset the people here at school. I'd like to help you out, but we have to address the problem. Um, you can express your disapproval as a teacher, as an authority figure, without attacking the student's character. So, I know Johnny is not the type of student who usually cheats. However, we caught him with his cell phone Googling answers during the test. You're not going to say Johnny is a cheater. You're going to say Johnny made a bad choice in this scenario. Um, Also, instead of coming out and really penalizing somebody, simply restate what your expectations are for class. And usually when you repeat the same simple message, I expect students to, use integrity, to follow their own directions, to not cheat. You state your expectations, and more often than not, students will correct their behavior by themselves. So the next thing is, after you state your expectations, you have to show the child how to make amends. How do you make up for this? And I had a young man who was on the football team who totally cheated and plagiarized on his final exam. He copied another boy's paper word for word. And when I sat down with him and I sat down with the football coach and we looked at both the papers, all of a sudden that child had several ideas of what he could do over his Christmas vacation to make up that failed final exam. So if you show the child, if you give them some helpful hints, if you give them some ideas, 9 times out of 10, they're more likely to correct their behavior, and they will usually pick a harsher punishment than you would be willing to give out. So next, we're going to offer students a choice. This is where you can say, all right, well, you're going to either sweep my classroom or sweep the cafeteria. Which would you rather do? Well, they're going to pick your classroom because it's much less messy than the school cafeteria. But by offering a choice, the message you're sending is that you respect the student, care about the student, and they will then have a little bit of exercise in what they want to do as punishment. And you also see a good sign of the child's character there, because some children will try and go for the easy one, but most will go for something that was fairly harsh. So the last thing is you let the child experience the consequences of their behavior, and this is where the tough love comes in. You can say, gosh, usually anybody who gets caught cheating on an exam in my class would fail for the entire semester. However, you're just going to fail this test. They still have consequences. The parents know the kid got caught cheating, but then you didn't ruin the child's life. It's not on their permanent record. They won't hate you forever. So, point out ways to be helpful, express your disapproval without attacking the character, state your expectations, show the child how to make it up to you, offer them a choice in the punishment, and then let the child experience the consequences of their behavior. These are all alternatives to harsh and draconian punishment that we can offer our students. The next step is problem solving, and this is where the book really gets very interesting about listening exercises and how do we listen to a child's feelings and determine what their needs are. When you do this, when you're an active listener, the book says, you need to be able to summarize the point of view. So I say, well, Susie, what I hear you saying is, Julia did this and that really angered you. Is that correct? And if you ask the child a question about it, they'll get a chance to, an opportunity to clarify whether you're on the right track or not. So this is also a chance for the students to express their feelings and their needs. You can also express your feelings and needs as a teacher. You invite the child to brainstorm a problem with you. Well, how can we solve this? And once the child is invited in and feels comfortable and starts to generate ideas, you as the teacher write down all of those ideas without evaluating them. Don't say anything, don't make any judgments, write them all down, and then together You will decide with either the student or with the students or maybe your entire class which ideas you like and which you don't like. And as you go through those ideas, solving this problem together, what you'll find is the kids come up with a lot of great ideas for solving problems. You don't have to. So the next chapter is about helpful praise and constructive responses. And this is very simple. You just describe what you see or hear. You also have to describe what you feel. And then you point out what still needs to be done. So this is what I saw when I came into the class. This is how it made me feel. And this is what still needs to be done. So trying to do this in a constructive manner means you're just being positive with it. So I hear, people getting their books out. I see students getting ready to work. This makes me happy when I see students getting ready to work. While many students are getting ready to work, I still see several students that have not gotten their books out, that do not have their pencils out. Instead of yelling, Johnny, get your pencil out, Johnny, get your book out, this general observation that you're relating to the whole class doesn't feel like a personal attack. So using helpful praise and constructive responses can help you give directions, can help you correct some not so great behavior without resorting to personal attacks, without singling kids out for embarrassment, and without creating something that they're going to resent. So the next piece is, instead of labeling a student, this is looking for opportunities to show a new picture of themselves, right? This is where you, and I love this picture here, the girl who's just holding the Post-it of the me. You know, sometimes students are locked into an identity, and if you can say, Julia, you really did a great job on this book report. I think you must have really enjoyed the book. That gives the student a new picture of themselves as a scholar. Instead of someone who usually never turns in homework, now all of a sudden Julia's proud that you've recognized her book report. So looking for opportunities to give a student a new picture of themselves really helps. Also, you can put a child in a situation where they see themselves differently. So the authors also recommend that you let them overhear, you let them hear you saying something positive about them. So you intentionally mention to another teacher, boy, Sam usually doesn't do so great on his tests, but on this one, he really knocked it out of the park. So when they hear that, they all of a sudden realize that your trust in them, your faith in them, your confidence in them is warranted, and it's actually paying off. So the next thing is you try and model the behavior you would like to see, what you want to see in your classroom, the way you pass out papers, the way you get your work. When you show students how to do it, they understand and they're more likely to follow it, as opposed to, singling out the students who aren't doing it correctly. So reminding the child of their past accomplishments is a nice way to do that. I like to, if I remember their test scores, sometimes I'll look at their test scores before another big exam, and I'll say, Jose, you got an 89 on the last test. What do you think you're going to do on this one? Oh, there go my lights. I'm sorry, someone in the district didn't pay the bills. I'll be right back. Okay, sorry about that interruption. I'm back. Let's see if I can go back to our PowerPoint. Yes, there we go. And lastly, you're going to state your feelings and your expectations again in a positive fashion. So I'm going to rush through the next slide because I'm running out of time. It is about parent-teacher partnerships. You start by describing something positive. Then you describe what the child needs to do to be successful in your class. Then you share the pertinent information about a particular incident. You allow the parent to describe what has worked at home before. Together you develop a plan, and then you end this conference with a positive statement, and then make sure you follow through with the plan with the parent. Call them and check up on them. A lot of this advice is what dovetails with the advice I gave in the proactive parent phone calls piece. So, lastly, the conversational style and realistic approach in this book makes it a quick